What's up, everybody? I've been getting back into sniping lately, so I figured I'd go ahead and make this video. We know that normally I have my top loadouts, my top long range options for ARs and LMGs, and my top close range options are SMGs because we don't promote shotguns on this channel. I've been getting back into sniping, like I said, so I decided I was going to make a top sniper support. Instead of having just rank 10, I'm going to break this down into top 5 ARs and top 5 SMGs for sniper support. Whether you use an AR and SMGs really going to kind of depend on the sniper or your playstyle. The ARs are more going to go with your HDRs or ZRGs if you like to sit rooftops and snipe from far away. And they'll fit also with the hybrid snipers if you run the Tundra or the SPR, which have decent ADS but higher bullet velocity than the CAR and the Swiss, and aren't quite your quickscope weapons but aren't quite the bullet velocity of the ZRG and the HDR. And then you're going to use SMGs really only if you're comfortable in the mid-range and the somewhat close range with your snipers, being the CAR or the Swiss. Depending on who, you could maybe run the SPR here, maybe the Tundra, but probably not. Either of those are going to work as well with an SMG, but those can be run with an SMG, especially at least 2 out of the 3 SMGs that I have on this list. And you'll see why. They just have the 2 longest damage drop-offs on this list, and they could work with more of a hybrid sniper. But with all that said, let's go ahead and just jump into my rankings for top 5 AR sniper supports and top 5 SMG sniper supports. Okay, and before we jump into this, you can already see my number 5 in the background, but just a couple notes. I left off the AS Val because it's really only viable in solos, maybe duos, but if you were just talking pure time to kill and usability, the AS Val would probably be number 1 because it has the highest TTK of any gun on this list, except for, no, it's faster than the OTS2, which it's faster than every gun on this list. But like I said, because of ammo, it's just getting left off this list. I also left off the RAM. The RAM has a fast TTK, but it's not as viable in trios and quads. It's less viable than like the AMAX, which you can see is going to be my number 5 because of ammo, but it's more viable than like the ammo on the AS Val. Has a fast time to kill, but you're just out of ammo. And I don't think there's any other AR. Oh, and I left the FFAR off because the recoil is too strong to really use at a mid-range, and then so that fits more in the SMG category of this. But with the SMG category, you need the really fast ADS, which the FFAR had nerfed plenty of times, so it doesn't really have a fast ADS. Then the other gun that some people might run that I left off was the STG-44 blueprint. I believe it's the Bone Rattler blueprint, the one with the blue dot sight. That one could be used, but it's unsilenced. You can't change the attachments on it. And the foregrip and the barrel or whatever combination is going to control recoil when you can fully customize that gun. Doesn't quite control recoil. And it's easier to use than an FFAR at range, but it's not as easy as any of the other weapons that I have on my list as the AR supports. So those are the ARs that got left off, but let's go ahead and jump into my 5 ARs. So number 5, we have the AMAX. The AMAX, it's at number 5 because it has a competitive time to kill with all the ARs on this list, but it's slower movement and slower ADS, being Modern Warfare. And it's got that bouncy recoil that we all know it for, and so it's a little bit tougher to use, but it is usable in the close and mid-range. The way I have it built out is it's all the same as you would normally build your AMAX, except instead of having an optic, because the iron sights aren't too bad on this gun, we go with the tac laser to get the fastest ADS we can give ourselves while having everything else here. It's not built completely for ADS because it is going to have to cover more of the mid-range, because this would be, like I said, with your HDR, your ZRG, or even your Tundra and your SPR, and it's going to have to cover the mid-range because you're not going to be quick-scoping people at mid-range. So we got to make sure our bullet velocity and damage range are there to compete with other ARs in the mid-range. So we can't quite build it out for ADS speed, but we can drop the optic and throw a tac laser on to greatly help the ADS speed. Another option is stipple grip tape, but it doesn't quite give you the ADS speed that the tac laser does, plus the tac laser gives you aiming stability as well. So from there, we move on to number 4. At number 4, we have the XM4. The XM4, I think, kills a little bit slower than the AMAX, but it's got like absolutely no recoil. This thing's an absolute laser beam. It also has clean iron sights, and because it doesn't have like any recoil at all, just very little bit, I put it ahead of the AMAX. They're very similar in time to kill. I believe the AMAX is slightly quicker, but the XM4 can also be built for a little bit better movement than the AMAX. The build I have, like I said, for the same reasons as the AMAX. Here I dropped the optic for attack laser for all the same reasons and built it otherwise full AR build for the same reasons I listed at the AMAX. I know some people might drop like the Grenadier barrel because the Monolith Expressor, as you can see, also helps with damage range. So some people might drop the barrel here and go with the no stock. I know a lot of people did that when they were running the SMG builds for the M4A1, but I like to focus all on my damage range and bullet velocity because, like I said, this is covering mid-range. So I just dropped the optic for the tac laser. Otherwise, it's your normal long-range build. So those are going to be the only two Modern Warfare weapons on this list, and we're going to start moving into Cold War from here on out. If you've watched any of my videos, you can probably guess what 3, 2, and 1 are. Maybe not 1, but you can probably guess what they are, just maybe not in order. 3, we're going with the XM4. The XM4, once again, I have built for pretty much my long-range build, except for dropping the optic for the airborne elastic wrap. And I also opted for the 60 round, instead of the 60 round mag, we opted for the 45 here. That's just to help with ADS speed. This thing, since it's going to be up close, you need the ADS speed to compete with SMGs at times. And that's got to happen with dropping the 60 down to the 45, as well as a couple other changes I'll go over in a second. But also, you're not going to be missing as many shots, so you won't need as many bullets. Since you're not going to be shooting this at 100 meters, that's going to be with your sniper. Another change that I do have is we have suppressor instead of agency suppressor. It does hurt your effective damage range, but it still gives you better bullet velocity. Not as good as the agency, but still increases your bullet velocity. Actually increases your aim down sight time while the agency suppressor hurts it. And increases your sprint to fire time. And also gives you the sound suppression so you're hitting off the minimap. The agency suppressor, as you can see, hurts ADS speed while giving you some vertical recoil control. This recoil is not bad, and you're going to be using it a lot up close, so we're not as worried about that. And gives you better bullet velocity and helps your effective damage range, but it's just not worth the ADS trade-off when you're going to have to also compete with SMGs. An option, if you want to run that, is you can go agency suppressor, and then you drop this barrel, and then you do something like microflex LED optic, if you don't like the iron sights, or you can do SAS combat stock or raider pad, one of those options, or you could also do like ember sighting point to help the hip fire accuracy when you're up against SMGs and effective damage range. But if you're going to drop the barrel, you have to go agency suppressor, and I would recommend either optic if you don't like the iron sights, or one of your two favorite stocks. Another option too here is, because the recoil is not crazy and you're not going to be using this at long range, you could also drop the field agent grip for a bruiser grip. You could also go Tiger Team Spotlight as one of your attachments, just like you would on an SMG. And then from there, we have number 2. Number 1 and number 2, I think, are going to be very interchangeable, at least for me. I prefer number 1 slightly. I know a lot of people are going to prefer number 2. Number 2 is the Cold War AK-47. Built just how we had the XM4, where we have the suppressor instead of the GRU suppressor on this one. And we have the 45 round mag instead of the 60. And then we have GRU elastic wrap instead of an optic on here. You can make the same changes where you drop the barrel, you go to GRU suppressor, and you put on your favorite stock, maybe Tiger Team, and I would recommend an optic if you're going to drop anything and add a different attachment, because the iron sights, while they're clean when someone's standing straight up, I find it easy to lose people when they crouch, drop shot, or if they're on a really nasty heady. I don't think these iron sights are always the easiest to use. So if you're going to drop the barrel, definitely you have to go GRU suppressor. And then if you're going to put on a different attachment, I would definitely go with the microflex LED. You could also change the Spetsnaz grip to the bruiser grip. Or I know some people will drop the grip altogether and go for an optic and keep this barrel and muzzle combo. And then number 1, to me, it's the EM2. Now, the downside of the EM2 over the AK is you have to, and the XM4 is you have to use an optic, because it comes with that optic on its base gun, and I just don't really like that optic. I have to drop it for a microflex LED. The zoom's weird. The sight picture isn't very big within the optic. It's got the big bezel on it, so I just really hate that optic. So unfortunately, you do have to use an attachment slot for an optic. So that being said, you might be more inclined here to drop the task force barrel and change the suppressor to the agency suppressor, but otherwise we have it built the exact same as we have. And so that way you can put an optic on here and then put on your airborne elastic wrap for your fastest ADS that you can have. So that's definitely a change you might want to consider, because otherwise the AK and the XM4 have that advantage over it. With being able to run the build like this is here. And so that is the one downside of the EM2, but I just find the EM2 for me easier to use than the AK. I just really like the way it feels. I really like how hard it hits, and I believe the time to kill is slightly better than the AK. And because it's better than the AK, and the AK is, better than pretty much anything else at sniper support for 99% of people otherwise, when it comes to ARs, I just have to give it, I just have to make those my top two, and the EM2 is just better to me. So I put it above the AK, but they're really interchangeable depending on your preference, and I don't think one's necessarily better than the other than what you feel is better. And that wraps up my ARs. So if you're not interested in the SMGs, thank you for watching to this point. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the SMGs from here. Number 5, we have a gun that I think I'm going to start trying out more. I haven't really used it, but I definitely want to explore it more, and that's the Modern Warfare AUG. It's got the fastest time to kill for up close besides like the M19s and the Akimbo. It has to be the Akimbo M19s or the AS Val. It has a faster time to kill than the OTS and the Cold War MP5. Plus, because you put 5.56 rounds on it, which you'll see in a second, you actually increase your damage range, and so now it's beating out the damage range of the Cold War MP5, of the OTS, and having a faster time to kill. And so it makes it a really good sniper support. The problem being is it's extremely slow moving and it's extremely slow to ADS. So that's why I get stuck to number 5, even though it's got one of the fastest time to kills of all SMGs in the game. And this is going to be an SMG that can cover mid-range if you're rotating with it. But, if you're going to be running the Swiss and the car, maybe the SPR or the Tundra here, you're going to be quick scoping people and you're not going to worry about the mid-range because your sniper's going to handle that. You just want something that can handle it if you need it. And so we went over this in my SMG video yesterday, so this build should be fresh in your mind, as well as builds for, I think, every SMG on this list was on that. And that's going to be monolithic suppressor, tac laser, forged tac CQB comb, the 5.56 NATO 60 round drum instead of the 30, and the stippled grip tape. Now we have no barrel here, we have no underbarrel, and we have no optic. All because we are focused mainly on ADS because this gun ADS is so slow. And you already are going to have to pre-aim corners with this. But if we did a barrel or we did an underbarrel, we would have an even slower ADS time. And then you'd pretty much have to ADS walk everywhere with it. So we go with the 5.56. There is a 30 round option, as you can see right here. And you can run 30. If you're running solos, maybe duos, you can go with the 30. But trios, quads, and rebirth trios and quads, you're going to want to run the 60, and it really hurts your ADS speed, whereas the 30 doesn't. And the 30 actually hurts your recoil control for some odd reason. But the 60, you have a lot more ammo. You can handle trios and quads and rebirth trio and quads a lot easier, and it does hurt your ADS, which is part of the reason why we're focusing on ADS with this build otherwise. You have to run the 5.56, by the way, otherwise this time to kill increases dramatically, and it's just not a good gun. It's still slow that way, both movement and ADS speed, and has a way slower TTK. So if you're going to run it, this is how you have to run it, but it does have one of the fastest SMG TTKs in the game. So from there, we move on to 4, and you'll notice I left off more aggressive SMGs, by the way, like the MAC-10, both MP5s, the OTS, because those the damage drop-offs aren't as long as a lot of guns on this list. So unfortunately, those do get left off the list. But if you're really sweaty and you can even handle like the mid-close range or the close mid-range, however you want to phrase it, then yes, those are definitely viable guns and you can definitely run them. I also left off the MP7, which was the classic SMG sniper support before Cold War was introduced, just because its damage drop-off doesn't compete with like all the Cold War guns on this. It does have a very good up-close TTK, but like I said, I do want something that can help you handle the mid-range, even though you're going to be mostly handling the mid-range with your car or your SPR. So then enters the Lapa. The Lapa, without any barrel, has an 11-meter damage drop-off, which is already good. And I believe Ranger barrels are about 10%, and so that's going to give you 12 to 13 meters if you use the Ranger barrel. If you're running this as an assault rifle SMG combo, you're going to go with the rifle, especially if you're pushing up close, because that helps you with the best damage and fire rate. But the Ranger gives you the furthest effective damage range and the best bullet velocity that you can have on this weapon. So as running in sniper support, you do have to go with the Ranger barrel. And then it's the usual Agent Suppressor, Tiger Team Spotlight, Bruiser Grip, Stanag 50 round. I did debate leaving this off this list, and this is why it's at number 4. The iron sights, like I've harped on in my SMG video and in my loadout video and in my Lapa video itself, the iron sights are awful on this. to the point where I would probably drop the Tiger Team Spotlight and I would go with a Microflex LED if you can't use the iron sights. I'm just trying to train myself to be able to use them, but I'm getting very close because I really like this gun. I'm getting very close to switching to the Microflex LED instead of running a Tiger Team Spotlight or Bruiser Grip. I'd have to play with it. And then the other thing being is that, like I said, it just doesn't have quite the damage drop off as the rest of these guns, so it does get stuck at number 4. And like I said, I did debate leaving this off for the iron sights. Then we move up to 1, 2, and 3. And in my mind, depending on your play style, you could really switch these with whatever. More 1 and 2, but I really think 1's going to be the strongest on here. Number 3 is the Milano. The Milano has the furthest damage drop off of any SMG while also having very little recoil, so it's easy to use in the mid range and it's okay to use in the close range. It doesn't have the greatest TTK. You are going to lose to an OTS, to Cold War MP5, to the Lapa, to the Modern Warfare. You're going to lose to a lot of SMGs up close, but those SMGs, like I said, aren't going to be able to handle the farther out close range, the early mid range, somewhere in there. They're not going to handle it as well as the Milano, and the Milano can also beam people from 100 meters away if you're accurate. It's going to be usual SMG build. It's going to be Agent Suppressor, Task Force Barrel, Tiger Team Spotlight, Bruiser Grip, Stanag 50 round. Now, with all these Cold War SMGs, the iron sights are decent or good on all of them. Like the Milanos are very good. But because you are going to possibly use more range, I could see dropping the laser on all of them, aka your Tiger Team Spotlight, and putting a Microflex LED. But other than that, I wouldn't make any changes unless you'd rather run a stock instead of the Tiger Team or the Bruiser. Number 2 is the Bullfrog. The Bullfrog doesn't have the damage drop-off of the Milano or my number 1 option, but it's got a better time to kill than both of those guns. It's got a 50-round mag stock, which means you can play with attachments a little more. And it's got almost no recoil at all, even though they did increase the recoil, even when you're using this at mid-range. And it's going to be the usual Groove Suppressor, Task Force Barrel, Tiger Team Spotlight, Bruiser Grip. Here, if you want an optic or a stock, instead of dropping the Tiger Team or the Bruiser Grip, I would drop the 65-round mag, because then you still have 50, and that's still a decent amount of ammo, and then you can rock whatever optic or stock you want. On all SMGs, I just avoid the rear grip, because SMGs have such good ADS speeds already, and rear grip's only going to be for ADS speed. I'd rather get other benefits. But the Bullfrog's number 2, because like I said, it doesn't have the damage drop-off distance of the Milano or what number 1 option is, but it's got a better time to kill than I believe both those guns. Maybe the number 1 has overtaken it. But enough talk about the number 1. Let's just go to the number 1. If you've watched my videos, you can probably guess what it is, because it's what I featured in my loadout video with my aggressive sniper class. And that's the PPSH. PPSH has the second furthest damage drop off of viable SMGs. I don't know if it's past the nail gun or not, but the nail gun's not really viable for reasons we've talked about before. And the PPSH, so that makes it number 2 to the Milano in damage drop off, with a better TTK than the Milano itself. So the PPSH has the best damage drop off and TTK combination of all the SMGs on this list. And it's going to be the usual Groove Suppressor, Task Force Barrel, Tiger Team Spotlight, Bruiser Grip, and 55-round drum. You could go to the 71-round drum if you want the extra ammo. Being an SMG and having a really good ADS speed already for the SMGs, it's not going to kill you. It's like a 10% penalty, but it's an option. I prefer to just run the 55 because the 55 is enough and doesn't hurt the stock. And once again, drop the laser, the underbarrel if you want an optic, and go with the Microflex LED. But with all that being said, I hope the video was helpful for you. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell for more. Tell me down below in the comments what your favorite AR sniper support is, what your favorite SMG sniper support is, why I'm right, why I'm wrong, what you like, what you don't. Let me know down below. I'll also have all my social medias linked in the description below, so please feel free to visit those. But I'll see you in Verdansk on Rebirth Island. Get frying. Have a good day. Bye.